Goal Getting Podcast, Episode 20. Hello, goal getters. Do you have these negative, limiting beliefs that keep you from getting the goals you set? Well, let's listen to the Goal Getting Podcast and turn them into positive, success-seeking beliefs and thoughts. Change your subconscious mind and get the goals you're set. This is Tony Woodall with the Goal Getting Podcast, and we're going to show you how. You can succeed. Hello, goal getters. This is Tony Woodall, your host for Goal Getting Podcast. Thank you for being with us today. We have a special episode today. I've brought in my coworker, Michael Masangkay, and we were going to do a first for me, and that is a first live podcast interview. Usually I do them over Skype or some sort of method for remote because I'm not with people right away during the interviews. So we have to do it in a remote broadcast or a remote recording using Skype or something along that line. Now with Michael, he's a coworker of mine, and Michael is a phenomenal athlete, and I found out that he had just completed his second Escape from Alcatraz triathlon, and I knew he'd done it last year, but he did it again this year, and it just is totally amazing to have somebody that complete that. At least for me it is, because I'd always heard that you can't escape from Alcatraz. I've seen the movie The Rock, and I've seen Birdman from Alcatraz, and all those where they tell you can't escape from Alcatraz, it's impossible. And obviously that is not true. So today we have Michael on as a live broadcast or a live recording. And then the other thing that we did that day when we did the recording was we recorded it on Periscope. And Periscope, if you're not familiar with Periscope, you need to check it out. It's a program by Twitter that allows you to do live broadcasts all over the world. And you have people that can follow you. You can follow, if you have Twitter followers, they can follow you on Periscope. And you can just get people who find a broadcast on Periscope anywhere in the world. You can listen to these live broadcasts and watch them on, Periscope TV. So it's really a cool thing. And I was going to do this live on Periscope, which I did. And this is actually, the recording is from the Periscope recording because my equipment that I was doing my live podcast recording on failed. I didn't have enough space on my iPad, and I was doing a remote rig that I had found out about using a product called BossJock. So I'm getting a little technical for you, but there's a lot of great technology out there that allows you to do certain things that's really cool. And I really was looking forward to practicing a live interview so that I could start doing more man on the street kinds of interviews, but also just Periscope to be able to broadcast live all over the world for people to watch your show. If you are into, doing some sort of presentation and you want it to broadcast worldwide, get on Twitter if you're not already and sign up for Periscope and get out there, and hopefully we can see each other on a Periscope TV. Anyhow, we're going to get into the show because I'm tired of talking here, and you need to listen to Michael's story. He is a phenomenal athlete. He's got some tips for you. If you are interested in doing a 5K, a marathon, a triathlon of any type, any kind of run and activity like that, Michael has some great tips today, and you can learn how to prepare for that, how he prepared for it. And he's just a real nice guy. I enjoy working with him and learning from him in a lot of areas. Very generous guy. So I'm going to stop talking and let's listen to Michael. Good morning or good day or good evening, wherever you're at listening to Goal Getting Podcast. This is Tony Woodall, your host for Goal Getting Podcast. We have a special treat today. I'm interviewing my guest today is Michael Masangkay, who happens to be one of my coworkers. And Michael is a phenomenal athlete, and I brought him on the show because I found out this month that he is a 2-time finisher of the Escape from Alcatraz triathlon here in San Francisco. When I heard that, I think that's just an amazing feat in itself. And when I saw that he had done it a second time this year, and I just really am impressed with his ability to do that. I can't run, swim, or bike that far, and so I thought it was amazing. But what I wanted to do is have Michael, hold on a second. Oh, great. I'm out of storage on this device. So that's not going to work. So we're just going to punt here. Crap. So we're live here on Periscope, and we'll just go live on Periscope and see how that works and go from there. So you can see Michael right there. It's Michael Masangkay. I'm Tony Woodall, and hopefully this is coming over well. I'll have to hope that works out since I apparently ran out of space on my iPad. I'm using a new program called Boss Jock on my iPad to record this interview live, which I've never done before. And apparently I'm out of space on this machine here. So that's something you need to learn if you're going to be doing live interviews. Make sure you have room on your equipment to be able to handle that. So again, I apologize, Michael. We'll work this with the Periscope. So folks, welcome to the podcast. Again, this is Goal Getting Podcast. Michael, thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me, Tony. It's exciting.
Well, good.
Get my first podcast and video cast.
Yeah, everything. This is a first for the two of us. And I was totally fascinated by your finishing the Escape from Alcatraz triathlon. And, you know, we're familiar with triathlons. A lot of people do them, and you know, you hear and read about them, but when you think about the Escape from Alcatraz being here in San Francisco, that was an island that supposedly was unescapable, that nobody could escape from or swim away from. I saw the Birdman of Alcatraz, and read all the stories and all the sharks out in the bay and everything, and they say it's not possible to escape from Alcatraz, but you've done it twice. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience and what you, how that was for you?
Yeah, so to give you a quick background, the Escape from Alcatraz triathlon is one of the premier triathlons in the San Francisco area,
mm-hmm.
right? What it composes of is approximately a 2-mile swim, an 18-mile bike ride through the hills of San Francisco, and then it finishes off with about an 8-mile run over the bridge down to Baker Beach and then back to kind of the Crissy Field area. So this is my second year finishing the triathlon. I've been doing triathlons since 2012. I'm started out with some shorter distance ones, but the Escape was one that I was always drawn to, just because a term you'll hear very tightly close to Escape is it's iconic, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the swimming across the bay, riding over the Golden Gate Bridge, not across the bridge itself, kind of past it, and then the run. And it was just something that I wanted to do. As a new swimmer, I just learned to swim in 2012 as well. And so I thought, what better way to...
So you are a new swimmer. I mean, you knew how to swim before that, just never distance or never knew how to swim.
So I could tread water, feel comfortable, jumping off, kayaking or doing that type of stuff. But I could never swim freestyle for any kind of distance.
No kidding.
Not even, one lap across the pool. So.
Oh, wow. And you made it. How many miles was that swimming? I know it's at least a mile.
It's a couple miles. Current assisted. So it helps help you a little bit if you're going in the right direction.
Right. Okay. Excellent. Well, that again is amazing that here you are a non-swimmer, essentially. You weren't on a swim team. You didn't do a lot of laps, not long distance. And yet you decided that you're going to jump in the icy waters of San Francisco Bay and swim from Alcatraz to land.
Yeah. So, I think one thing that makes the Escape so iconic is the difficulty. It's the cold water, right? The water ranges anywhere from, 55 to 60 degrees, right? The currents that are in there, I mean, the feet of the Golden Gate Bridge is building that it's not that long, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's the currents that are very strong. And so, and then there's environmental factors, swimming in the open water, the waves and those types of things that make it challenging, but very, very fun.
Now, it must take a lot of, preparation to do that sort of an event. And, here on Goal Getting Podcast, we have people who, have fitness goals and have things that they're trying to achieve. And, they might set unrealistic goals that, I think tomorrow I'm going to go, enter the Escape from Alcatraz, triathlon, and never having done any of that. I mean, I could not I'm sure I would be recommended not to even attempt that at this point in my life because I haven't done any of that. So, is there a routine or recommendations that you have? I noticed you talked to one of our coworkers on our social media platform about preparation because she's getting ready to do, I think, a triathlon or even just a marathon. And you recommend certain tips for, working on this. And I know you've probably got certain habits that you work on or that you have to prepare you for this sort of an event.
So I think, Tony, definitely. I mean, if there's a regular routine, I regularly bike, I regularly swim, I regularly run. But I think, just like anything else that you want to accomplish, it's the consistency, right? And practice.
Mm-hmm.
When you're public speaking, I know you're big into public speaking, and lots of folks have an anxiety about public speaking. And the more you do it, the more you practice it, the more you get comfortable with it. And so I think, exercise is really just a regular part of my week and my day. It's something that I look forward to because I really enjoy it. There's been times where running has been challenging at times, but in your mind, you try to fool yourself, wow, every step, this is great. This is so fun. It's better here than maybe being in the office, mm-hmm. right? I'm outside, I'm in the fresh air. And so I really, really enjoy all three sports. And there's just an inherent enjoyment in exercising. I speak to my coworkers, like when they're on vacation, they ask me, why are you exercising when you're on vacation?
Uh-huh.
You're supposed to be on vacation. But no, it's what I really enjoy.
Right.
And so I think, getting into a habit and making something regular, that makes all the difference in the world. Right. So triathletes are typically type A personalities,
mm-hmm.
That they and athletes in general, right? They're used to routine. They have a lot of, if you look at an NBA basketball player before he takes a free throw shot, he does funny things. He'll either touch his ear, he'll touch his nose,
uh-huh.
because what they're trying to do is something, special on a regular basis.
Right.
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 So
yeah, one of the things that I've heard about is a lot of people use what's called anchoring. As they're starting to do things and do things well, they start developing an anchor that helps their body and their mind, remember that, and doing the ear pulling or something like that helps to trigger those positive emotions or those positive experiences and bring them back. So that may be something that they're doing or something. But yeah, I've seen that before, and that's very important. Now, do you have a particular routine that you do follow for this to get ready for it?
So for my triathlon events in general, I swim twice a week,
mm-hmm.
Mondays and Wednesdays, after work at about 7 p.m. It used to be easier for me because I was attending a class
mm-hmm.
that would go over the total immersion swimming technique. And so because you have that class, you paid for it, it forces you to go, right? So I do that twice a week. Since I'm a member of the gym, I would go spinning on Fridays and typically ride a bike trainer on Wednesday mornings.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the weekends, I would go on like a long run, like a 13-mile run,
wow.
either on a Saturday or a Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's typically been my exercise routine.
Mm-hmm.
It's, relative to other triathletes, it's a pretty light training schedule.
Mm-hmm.
I know, they recommend, an hour a day, but, when you train for some of the longer events, sometimes they do twice a day workouts, and that's pretty regular.
Mm-hmm.
And then typically you do the long workout on the weekends. That's 2 to 4 hours.
Okay. Yeah. That's a lot of working out, but it's good. You look great. I've seen pictures of you riding in other events and things, and I know you do well. Now, on triathlons or any type of event like this, are there things that you should do? I think you mentioned something about going before the race and running the course or riding the course, or I guess you can't just swim the bay that often, but what are some of your pre-race kind of things that you do to get ready for a race?
Well, there's a lot of checklists involved,
uh-huh.
right, with doing a triathlon. So typically on some of these larger events, there's an athlete check-in the day before, where you go and you show your ID and your, and you sign all the authorization forms. And then you want to make sure that you brought everything with you, right? Typically, Sometimes a lot of these races are destination races,
Mm-hmm.
right, where you travel to that place. Or in my, Escape was a local race for me, but still, it would be terrible if I forgot something,
Right.
that morning, right? So there's a lot of checklists that you have to keep track of. You got to make sure you have your goggles, your earplugs, your swim cap, your heart rate monitor, your bike, your running shorts, all your gear, your running shoes. Imagine if you didn't have your bike shoes with you, towels, water bottles, your lubrication spray so that you don't chafe anywhere. There's so many things to keep track of that you just have to keep that checklist. And as you mentioned before, if you know the course of the race course, psychologically, you feel more comfortable, right? You know where you're going to have to push. You know where you're going to be tired. You know where you're going to have to eat. On a lot of these longer races, there's a nutrition strategy that you have to practice. Whether that's Cliff Bars or just a liquid intake. Are you a Gatorade person? You have to consider the Gatorade or the liquids that they're providing. Are you used to it? Have you tried it before? Is this the first time that you're going to use it? A lot of the longer Ironman events, they have Coca-Cola. So does Coca-Cola work for you in the race scenario? There's a lot of things that you should try to prep for. Just knowing the course and previewing it. If it's a it's a hometown advantage, right? That helps a lot.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I can imagine that, because folks coming from out of town don't have any clue. We have a hard enough time with the tourists coming in that expect San Francisco to be hot in the summertime, and they come in their shorts and T-shirts and end up buying the obligatory sweatshirts.
The fleece, the San Francisco fleece, right?
Yeah. So, that can be quite daunting if you're not familiar. So that is somewhat of an advantage here, I think. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
I wanted to mention, in terms of preparation, that, the Escape from Alcatraz has a lot of international travelers. A lot of people from South America, from Mexico, from Europe. And many of them aren't used to the cold waters of the bay, right? Or the saltiness or those types of things. So many times the athletes are out there at Aquatic Park getting used to the temperatures, getting used to the currents. But really, one of the only ways to test it is to really go out there. There's no way to simulate that current and your sighting. That's a key point of that. And so a lot of the athletes will get out there beforehand, or they'll even work with one of the swim outfitters there. They'll actually take a boat out there and try it. And so those athletes are usually more successful. At completing it.
Preparation is key, I would think, to that sort of an event. Like I said, making sure that you're aware of what's going on around you and all the different environments out there. That's great. Now, you talk about, to a lot of folks, I've overheard you talking about equipment and investments in gear and things like that. And there are a couple of things that you had talked about. One being the best investment being a coach. Now, do you have a coach now? I know you said you had one for swimming. Do you have other coaches for other areas, or a coach for each of the different areas?
So I've primarily been a self-taught kind of triathlete. The only coaching that I did have was the swim coach. I would love to have a running coach and a biking coach, but it can be cost prohibitive, right? And so the one coach that I had, the swim coach that I had, I was part of a class that would do it twice a week, and she would, it's in a group environment, but still she would give personalized advice on things that I should correct. Either my head should be down, or my elbow should be up, or I should relax my hands more. But the most valuable part of that was the feedback that I was getting, because I would think that I'm doing something correctly. I would totally think that my head is down or my elbow is high and up.
Right.
But when you look at yourself in video, it's complete opposite. So those small refinements and that coaching was the only way that I could improve my swimming, and it was incredibly valuable. But the other thing that they say is you should train in a group, right? Which is something that I don't do that often. But when you do train in a group, you have, again, that feedback loop, or a different standard to measure up to, right? I might think that this is fast, but when you ride with another group, that's really fast, right? And so you can kind of work for that. So that's also so very valuable to work to be part of a club or a group.
It kind of brings it into like a mastermind group, which a lot of business people join mastermind groups to have a group of like-minded people that they can bounce things off of. And even in a fitness environment like this, triathletes maybe getting with the group will help because, again, it gives you that ability to talk and measure yourself against maybe somebody better than you, and have that not so much a competition feeling, but, at least, you have somebody who does things better than you to learn from maybe or something like that. So it kind of correlates into a mastermind principle, I think, for athletes.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I tend to do a lot of things, by myself, and, you kind of have this pride that you want to, kind of make your own trail, right? But there's so much value in just bouncing ideas off of each other. It's not really a I'm better than you type of thing. It's a, I do this, oh, you do that, and oh, okay, that's fast, and it's a conversation back and forth. You'll talk to a lot of triathletes. Again, typically they're type A, sometimes very confident, and that can be a turnoff sometimes, right? Yeah, I've done 2 Ironmans and things like that, and yeah, there's a certain sense of pride, that comes with that. But also at the same time, there's a lot of valuable information that you get from talking to folks, and it's a nice, conversations that you can, nice information that you can bounce off of each other.
Excellent. Yeah, I think that would be definitely advantageous. I know there are several running training programs. Team in Training is one that I heard that kind of works to get teams together to compete in, or not even compete, but to raise money for different things. But they work in a team to help bounce that off of each other and get that. I've heard of that, but that makes a lot of sense. So. Now, do you have, obviously you have to have goals to be able to achieve this sort of event, and finishing it and just even participating in it. Do you have any particular way you set goals for this kind of thing? You obviously just don't go out and do a lot of hard training the same day that you're going to do it, obviously. So do you have a goal, way you set your goals for this, or something you would recommend for people?
So one of the exciting things about triathlon is that there's 3 sports, right? And typically you have one that's stronger than the other. And so one of my goals for this season was to really focus on the swim. The swim was the most challenging for me because I'm new to it. The bike I feel pretty comfortable, and the run is challenging because it's at the end. But so I really wanted to focus on the swim. So I would be very diligent in making my Monday, Wednesday classes. I would get out to Aquatic Park. I joined some of those outfitters where I did a couple practice runs across the bay, and so to just be well prepared. So that was my focus. So my goals on this race was to obviously get a PR, which is get a personal record. It was improved. On the swim, I fell a little bit short at this time because I didn't sight correctly. But the bike, I did well. I did a PR. And on the run, my goal was to not stop for one of these particular sections. I really, last year, I was just so down. And I felt bad that I had to stop and walk a little bit of it. And this year, I had the goal of not stopping for that run too.
And you achieved that.
And I achieved that.
Cool. Excellent. So, yeah, that's all. It takes a little bit of goal here and there and achieving those, and then you get to celebrate. I've got a question we usually ask, and I don't know if you have it off the top of your head, but we like to ask, do you have a quote that hangs on your wall that motivates you, something that you use or look at several times to, help inspire you perhaps?
Right. I'm not that big of a quote person, but on my iPad, I do have a quote on it, which is always learn, always grow.
Oh, that's cool. Then you put it on your iPad.
I did. So
always learn, always grow.
Yes. One thing a philosophy that I've always tried to follow in my life is to constantly improve myself. There's that concept of Kaizen. That's a Japanese for I think continuous improvement, something like that. Toyota employs that. Total immersion swimming employs that. and just fundamentally in my life, I've always wanted to be someone that, hasn't always been, necessarily the star athlete or, always at the top. But the one thing that I could always say is that I'm always getting better at whatever I do, even if it's a low bar. Right. But that's something that I've always tried to incorporate in anything that I do.
Excellent. I like that quote. Always learn, always grow. Is that something that you made up yourself and just use that because of your personal thing, or do you?
Yeah, I think I don't know.
Just your own personal
statement.
Cool.
That
That's great.
Kind of found.
That's excellent. Now, you're also a book reader, I believe, if I remember some of your things. Do you have a book that you would recommend for somebody trying to achieve goals? Do you read books that related to fitness or anything like that, or what? Even in business?
Right. There is one book that I use for triathlons. It's by Joel Friel. It's the science of triathlon.
Science.
Yeah. And it's what Joel has done. He's a coach, a triathlon coach at the elite level, and he's compiled a lot of the best research in triathlon. Like anything else, you go on the internet and find some information on triathlons and training and things like that. You don't know what you get, right? Whether it's nutrition or how much training should you do or intensity, and you're just not sure if this is a trend, if it's just something that's based on proven science. But in that book, he's compiled a lot of articles from some of the top folks that study triathlons and athletics, and lots of great information in there.
Okay.
Very practical advice. A chapter is broken out into short chapters, so it's digestible. Not something that you have to read all the way through to get it. But it's it depends on. It could work for some folks.
Oh, excellent! It's Joel Friel.
Friel.
Joel Friel, and it's Science of Triathlons.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'll have those on the show notes at our podcast page at goalgettingpodcast.com/Alcatraz. goalgettingpodcast.com/Alcatraz, and we'll post that up there so they can find that a link on Amazon or somewhere if they want to check that book out. And we'll also post your quote up there so people can use that and have that out there. Now, we talked briefly about equipment. You mentioned coach. Is there a favorite piece of equipment that you use or recommend?
Ooh, a favorite
for training?
A piece of equipment. Well, there's a lot of different, the one thing, of all the bikes and the running shoes and all this stuff. Yeah, the one thing that came to mind is my Tri-Glide. Tri-Glide, which is a lubricant.
Oh, the lubricant. Yeah.
It's a spray, or there's a Body Glide, I think, which typically most people use. Body Glide is like a deodorant stick.
Yeah.
And you just put it around, your shoulders, where your t-shirt might chafe against your thing, your underarms, if your arms are running against each other. You use this Tri-Glide for wetsuits because you spray it around your neck, because when you're swimming, the wetsuit is around your neck. And that thing is it just saves you from pain.
Yeah. And I could imagine just take away from your whole thought process. And instead of concentrating on the finish line, you start concentrating on these chafing points. I can imagine. I've had the experience, not even in that type of a competition, but I've had where, I've done long distance walking where all of a sudden I'm chafing and my mind's, okay, I got to stop now. This is over. And you don't have the opportunity to do that in the middle of the bay, for example.
Yes.
You just can't. Oh, well, I'm done.
Yes.
So yeah, that's very important. I mean, it seems like such a trivial thing, but it really is, something to keep your mind off of the pain or whatever as long as you can. So that's a very valid piece of equipment that you definitely don't want to forget. Yeah, I could imagine that. So, so that's you've given some great information today for the listeners and folks who are involved in trying to, achieve a goal such as a triathlon, or even just running or losing weight or getting into shape. I know that's something I need to get busy on. It's one of my goals this year, and I tend to procrastinate on that. So do you have any parting words of wisdoms, for people that are, interested in maybe getting to a point where they can enter a marathon, a triathlon, a 5K even? What are what's some words of wisdom that you might have for somebody who's got that as a potential goal?
Right. You've heard a lot of things about writing down lists and keeping track of things. One of the biggest things that I've done is keep track of all my exercises and a diary, most recently a diary of the food that I eat.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's a pain in the neck to kind of log it in and see what kind of, your food or your exercise, you have to take an extra step.
Mm-hmm.
But then once it becomes habit, it becomes so much easier. And it's also a motivating factor. You don't want to have really empty entries in this log of yours.
Right.
And it motivates you to kind of keep on continuing with that. In the last year, even though I've been doing triathlons since 2012, the last year I was able to lose 10 pounds.
Wow.
Where I've never been able to lose that amount of weight, even though I was training, because I made some adjustments to my diet where I eliminated a lot of the rice that I used to have for dinner. And because I'm keeping track of it in like a MyFitnessPal application that keeps track of the calories. Yeah, there's many days where I don't hit it. But the fact that I'm keeping track of it, it does add that extra little motivation to do that. So I would recommend any type of tracking that you could do to just keep on doing it. I think the key is regularity, right?
Right.
Even if it's small, just keep on doing it regular. That's one of the biggest tips.
Okay, excellent. That's really excellent. I've used MyFitnessPal as well, very successfully in a weight program that I went and lost 40 pounds on a couple of years ago. And
Amazing.
if it wasn't for keeping track of the calories that I was taking in and the calories that I was burning, it would have been very difficult to do that. So we'll have that on the show notes as well, a link to MyFitnessPal. So I agree measurement is very important when you're working on achieving goals, being able to take those action steps and measure what you're doing. So very good and valid information. Well, Michael, I appreciate your time on the show today. And, I'm going to ask everybody, if you have any questions for Michael, want to talk with him, you can go on our podcast show notes at goalgettingpodcast.com/Alcatraz and, leave a comment for Michael, and I'll forward them to him so that he can maybe respond to those comments if you have any questions for Michael. And he can see about getting in touch with you if you want to chat with anybody or anybody wants to chat with you about that. I appreciate your time and the effort you put in today. And I'm really excited to find out more about your exploits in triathlons and hearing about those. And one last thing before we go, though, I noticed, this is very key, I think, in any goal that you have, is having support from family and loved ones. And I noticed in a picture that you posted, you had your wife and your daughter at the race with you with signs, and I think I remember last year she had something as well. So it's really important. Your family is important to you, I think, and believe that, it's great having that. Can you just say a little word about, that?
Yes. So, without the support of my family, I would never be able to do any of this stuff. There's a lot of sacrifices that have to be made, right? With all the time that I'm training, if I have to go out for a couple hours on the weekend, I have a young daughter who's 6 years old, who also requires a lot of time and attention. And also, you have to also, with my wife, right? With my family, you have to spend the time.
Right.
And so that's the biggest obstacle actually for my triathlon training.
Yeah.
is finding that time. I even though I would love to go out there and bike for 4 hours on a Saturday morning, sometimes you have to go to your daughter's dance recital. Right. And so, I'm very fortunate that they're very supportive, and you try to make it fun. You could have a lot of destination events, right,
Mm-hmm.
where you kind of go out there and race for the day, and then you can go and maybe go around wine country or something like that. It's super important, having the supportive family. It's that you'll hear time and time again from any of these athletes, because so much time is spent training.
Yep. And that's great that you have that support, and thank your family, and love your little girl. I know that's always, my daughter just got married, so love our kids and spend time that we can with them, and it's nice that they support you in that. So that's all I have for us today. Again, I want to thank you, Michael, for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
And hope you on Periscope enjoyed the chat today. You can pick it up again. And you can check it out on our podcast at goalgettingpodcast.com. We're on iTunes and Stitcher, and look forward to chatting with you again. And again, this has been an experiment to put it live broadcast, and I appreciate those who stayed around with us. And we'll see you next time. Have a great day. All right, Goal Getters, I hope you enjoyed that interview with Michael Masangkay. Michael, again, is a coworker of mine, great guy, and I hope you learned a lot if you're into or want to participate or, do a marathon or triathlon or any type of run, a 5K, 1K, whatever they are, and you haven't done it, take some of Michael's advice. Check out his book that he recommended from Joel Friel, Science of Triathlon. Get your routines down so that you can get practice, that you do things that you need to do to prepare, follow up with, measurements, keep MyFitnessPal or some other tool out there, but, go out and have fun. That's the thing I think that I got as a takeaway from what Michael talked about, was that he likes doing all three of those. He loves swimming. He loves biking. He loves running. It is something that, makes his day, makes his week. It's something he lives for because he loves it. And, that's what you have to do. You have to have a passion for something to be able to do those sort of events like that. And, having a type A personality, as he said, doesn't hurt. So, Michael's great. Hope you enjoyed the show. Please come back and see us next week. You can catch the show notes if you want to go check those out at goalgettingpodcast.com/Alcatraz. And if you are in the San Francisco Bay Area, come visit Alcatraz. It's really fascinating to do a tour of the island and see the old prison and things like that. But if you're not from San Francisco, you need to come visit and have a great time. But again, you might not want to come completely in the summertime without a sweatshirt or something, because it does get a little chilly here in San Francisco, and the waters in the bay are very chilly. So anyway, have a great week. We appreciate you listening. Go to iTunes, subscribe, and if you wouldn't mind, if you like the show, give us a rating and review. We would love that. If you want to leave Michael comments on the show notes, please do that. Go to the comment section, fill something out. Ask him any question that you have about, the Escape from Alcatraz or just conditioning, type tips or whatever. I'm sure he'd be wonderfully happy to assist you and answer some of those questions for you. But thank you. Get your goals. Listen to Goal Getting Podcast. We're here to help you, achieve your goals and, help you learn things and get over obstacles that you may have. So have a great week. This is Tony Woodall with Goal Getting Podcast, and we'll see you next week. I'd like to thank my good friend, Mark Sensinger from marksensinger.com. Mark created Baccarat, the music you just heard, for the Goal Getting Podcast, and I really want to thank Mark for that. If you need any type of music, Mark is an excellent composer. He's done some things for Boston Pops, done a few things for other orchestras in the New England area. Go visit marksensinger.com and check out some of the great work that he's done. And he can do it for you. He can provide you with music for a bar mitzvah, bachelorette party, or your own wedding tune. That would be a wonderful thing to have your own wedding composition created by an artist like Mark Sensinger at marksensinger.com. So Mark's a good friend. Check him out. Go visit him and his webpage and see if he can write something for you like he did for us at Goal Getting Podcast with that great piece, Baccarat.